When your energy crashes, when your sleep is off, when your body just doesn't feel like it's keeping up anymore, it's really easy to focus on and blame hormones. And yes, hormones are part of the conversation, but what I see over and over again is that the adrenal glands are quietly running the show underneath it all. And when we don't understand that, we end up trying to fix the wrong thing. Hi, I'm Janelle Yule, functional health practitioner, and this is the Transformation Show. And today we're going to talk all things adrenal glands. And before I get into the adrenal glands have a lot to do with our nervous system. And so one of the things that I am going to encourage you to do to really help to understand this conversation today is to go back to two previous podcast episodes that we did several years ago. And they were titled Knowing Your Nervous System Part 1 and Knowing Your Nervous System Part 2. And that's really going to help to give you a better understanding of the context of really where the adrenal glands fall in. The conversation that I want to have today is really the adrenal glands midlife and where they come into the picture and what's happening versus zooming out and having kind of a larger conversation just for the sake of time. Plus, we already have that content. So a lot of what's being labeled as perimenopause that you are in conversation around with friends or coworkers, or that you're seeing online. So things such as fatigue, gut issues, headaches, insomnia, isn't just hormones shifting. So when I say isn't just hormones shifting, not just estrogen and progesterone that are shifting. It's how your body has adapted to stress over time. So for example, for me, if I am under a lot of stress and I'm not doing a great job of managing that stress or meeting my needs while I'm in that stress, I am likely going to have headaches show up. That's kind of my body's way of communicating with me. For somebody else, it may look and feel different. And so in midlife, when you are in the perimenopause transition, or if you are post-menopause and you've already gone through the transition, this will explain a lot of things. So progesterone is that sex hormone that starts to decline first. And then estrogen follows suit, but it can go high and low and before it goes low. And eventually your ovaries stop the production in the way that they used to. So the way I describe this when I'm talking to women is your ovaries say, peace out, I'm done, I did my job. And now that production needs to go somewhere because even if you are not taking hormone replacement therapy, you still need an amount of estrogen and progesterone in your body. So there is a backup system in the body. The body is so wonderful and so divinely created. And that system is your adrenal glands. That's where that production goes. And much of your testosterone production, even before you go through menopause, is produced by your adrenal glands. And so for somebody like me, and if you've been listening and following along, when I did the episode around hormone replacement therapy and why sometimes you don't necessarily see results or why it's maybe not like the magic bullet, that was my story. I was not producing testosterone because my adrenals were like underactive. And so your adrenal glands are the little glands that sit on top of your kidneys, and they are responsible for producing cortisol, and that is your stress hormone. They're also responsible for producing things like norepinephrine and adrenaline. And so if your adrenals, when you come into this midlife transition, are already overwhelmed, like meaning they're already producing too much cortisol, or they are not producing enough to keep up with the demands of the stress in your life, they don't have the capacity to support that transition very well at all. And this is where you come into midlife and it's almost like you feel like the wheels are falling off the bus. Now, it's not just, I want to be very clear as I'm having this conversation, is it's not just the adrenal glands. There are other things that are related. So hormones don't work in isolation. And next week's episode is going to be all about the thyroid. And the reality is if you have a thyroid issue, you likely have an adrenal issue. And if you have an adrenal issue, you likely have some form of a thyroid issue. And so again, hormones don't work in isolation. So I want to be clear as you're listening to this, it's not just the adrenals, but the adrenals are one of the systems in the body that you can really truly support to help yourself during this time. And so in conventional medicine, in conventional Western medicine, the adrenal glands are only looked at in extremes. So Cushing's would be too much cortisol. And I'm not talking just too much cortisol that I would see on a dried urine test for comprehensive hormones or a Dutch test. I'm talking like really extremely high cortisol. Or Addison's, which is really, really low. And even someone like myself who had low output for a long time, it was not even it wasn't close to the Addison's range. And so most women are not in the extremes. And Western medicine, the only way that they have to test cortisol is in one moment in time through blood, which I've talked about before, virtually tells you nothing. So again, when I'm doing a Dutch test, we are able to see a woman's cortisol over the course of a 24-hour period. That gives us so much information. We're also able to see how much cortisol she is producing and then how much cortisol she has available. So most women are somewhere in the middle, feeling off, but they're being told that everything looks normal. Because the other way that the Western medicine will assess adrenals indirectly, like they won't tell you they're assessing adrenals, but thyroid. So by the time a woman has a diagnosis of hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism, so either overactive or underactive, or Hashimoto's, which is the autoimmune diagnosis of thyroid, she has had an adrenal issue going on for quite some time. It's just that they don't have any way to test it. And again, they don't have any way to treat it. So, whereas as a functional health practitioner, when I'm working with women, we're looking at nutrition, we're looking at lifestyle, we're looking at movement, we're looking at circadian rhythm, we're looking at all of these things that impact adrenals. That's not what Western medicine is there for. And so I'm speaking to the woman right now who has been told all of your labs are normal, yet you feel anything but. Looking at your adrenals is going to be super, super key. Okay. And so again, really seeing that story and that picture of what is happening throughout the day, what's happening at waking, what's happening a couple hours after waking, what's happening in the afternoon, and what's happening in the evening. And so the very first time that I had my cortisol tested, it was for that very reason of I went to my yearly exam with my OBGYN. I was in my late 20s actually at the time. I was taking a nap every single afternoon. I was going to bed a lot by 8 o'clock at night. I had zero tolerance to exercise. I was holding on to excess weight, and I was like, I feel terrible. Like literally, I was like, I am a lot of fun to be around at 28 years old. And so I worked with a practitioner, much like what I am currently today. And this is part of how I got into what I'm doing, because it gave me so many answers. And when I first saw my own cortisol rhythm and what was going on with my adrenal glands, it gave me so much validation. So much validation in the form of I'm not crazy. I'm not making this up. My body isn't broken. Over time, and truly it was responding. And so that's really, really important, because your body is responding to the inputs that you are giving it. My body actually started down regulating cortisol production because I wasn't listening to the other signals that it was giving me. And so on one side, having a functional test like the Dutch test gave me a lot of validation. And on the other side, it also gave me a lot of permission that I wasn't willing to give myself. And this is also really, really important. And I know that there is a woman listening that needed to hear that. And so you can learn more about testing on my website, thetransformationlife.com. Click on programs and then click on functional testing, and you will see the Dutch test, and you will see exactly what you get. It's not just cortisol, but that's a big piece of it. And so when you find yourself in that, I don't feel good. Like, I just don't feel like myself. I just don't have the energy. I just don't have the resiliency. It's like, I want to consistently work out, but I just can't get myself to do it. It's likely that there's something underneath there with your adrenals, and you really, really need to start to look at what are the inputs that are creating these outputs. Not chasing outputs. We're not even chasing test results and ranges. We're looking at what are these inputs that are creating these outputs. And so stress versus hormone production is also a really key insight. So when your body is under chronic stress, and that stress can be external, like, so it could be a child that's going through something. It could be something professionally that you're moving through or working towards. It could be starting a business. It could be an aging parent. That stress, that chronic stress, could also be internal. So it could be gut pathogens. It could be, poor drainage and liver detoxification. It could be erratic blood sugar. It could also be perceived stress. So you are the person that is creating stories. You are the person that is, always thinking about when's the other shoe going to drop. You're worrying. Your adrenals are going to prioritize survival. And that means cortisol comes first. And so any other hormone production, whether it is progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, when your adrenals start to take over that progesterone and estrogen production, is not going to happen. And so this is really important because and I've talked about this on previous episodes, so this is probably not the first time you're hearing this if you have been around here for a while, but even when you're taking micronized oral progesterone or some form of progesterone and hormone replacement therapy, to try to support your hormones, your body may actually redirect that into stress support instead. So it's like you're throwing gasoline on a fire. And it's not because something's wrong with you. It's because of how your body is designed to protect you and keep you alive over all else. And so this is why, from a nervous system and a somatic insight, midlife is not just a hormone conversation. It's also a capacity conversation. And so, does your body feel safe enough to do more than just survive? And so, again, looking at what are the inputs that are creating this output, and how do you start to build back up your capacity? When you have hit your limit. So working outside of your capacity will likely look and feel like overwhelm, anxiety, frustration, anger, or it could look like procrastination, self-sabotage, shame. And we have different parts of our nervous system for a reason, right? So we have that activation, so that overwhelm, that frustration. We also have that freeze or that shutdown, so that procrastination, maybe, and it's about moving through those parts of the nervous system in a way that actually serves you rather than getting stuck there. It's like you're either, your foot is on the gas, getting stuck in activation, or your foot is on the brake, getting stuck in shutdown. So it's not that you are never going to move into those parts of your nervous system. It's not that you're never going to move outside of your capacity. It's that, how do you build that capacity back up so that window is wider? Your window of tolerance is wider, so it takes a lot more for you to move outside of that window of tolerance. And when you do, you're not staying there. And so this is where When your adrenals are either working on overdrive or not meeting the demands of your stress, your window of capacity, your window of tolerance is going to be much shorter. So you're going to feel like, I don't have the resiliency anymore. I don't have the get up and go anymore. I don't have the drive anymore. And truly, your body is wanting you to get, it's trying to get your attention. And so the other thing that I will say about cortisol and the adrenals, and this is a little bit more from the energetics, is that a lot of times, especially if you are on the underactive side and your body isn't producing enough cortisol to meet the demands of the stress that you have or are putting on it, it's really an opportunity for you to step back and question, am I on the right path? Or is there a path that I want to be on, but there's some fear, or there's the fear of judgment, or there's the fear of success, or there's the fear of failure? So I just want to leave that there because I think that that is also really important because, again, our body knows. The body keeps the score. When the body says no, you've heard me reference all of those things. And that's also really important to bring into the conversation because a lot of times the underproduction of cortisol for a lot of people sounds and looks like, if we want to put a label on it, burnout. And I believe that burnout is not doing too much. It's doing too little of what lights you up, or it is your body's way of slowing you down. It's putting you in shutdown. It's putting you in inaction so that you can really start to reflect and you can really start to make some decisions around, are things working for me the way that I want them to be working for me? And I don't just mean around your health. And so I want to give you some really simple, but not always easy, practical application, because your adrenals do not need more intensity. That is the opposite of what your adrenals need. Your adrenals need support. They flow when there is rhythm. They really like predictability. And so this is important because that predictability or that familiarity could actually be something that you don't prefer or that isn't serving you anymore. And so that's important to look at. They also really like consistency. So recently, I was redoing my values. I was going through a value exercise. And one of my top 5 values is consistency. And I always thought that consistency was a value of mine because I have lived from that place of consistency is key and consistency gets you to the results that you desire. And yes, that is true. And I realized that one of the reason why I value consistency is because of my nervous system. My nervous system likes consistency. And so there's a positive aspect of that. And then there's also when things aren't consistent or people aren't consistent, that can actually be a growth edge for me. And so what this can look like in your daily life and your daily rhythms is waking up at roughly the same time each day, going to bed at roughly the same time each day, eating consistent meals at roughly the same time each day. So you're not skipping meals, you're not crashing your blood sugar, you're stabilizing your blood sugar. Really think about how your adrenals like grandma things. They like dinner early. They like calm. They like creativity. Maybe, you think about I think about my grandma. She loves to puzzle. She loves to read. My adrenals love both of those things. They also really love hydration with minerals. Your adrenal glands need sodium. They need good, high quality sodium. That could look like Redmond's real salt. It could look like Celtic sea salt. It could look like Himalayan sea salt, or it could look like electrolytes. They also protein is very stabilizing to your nervous system. to your adrenal glands. And then this is a big one. And I keep saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it because sunlight, natural light sets that circadian rhythm. And you have an HPA axis. So your adrenal glands are taking orders from your pituitary gland, and your pituitary gland is taking orders from your hypothalamus in your brain. So natural light is really important for that really healthy cortisol response, not an overproduction, but also not an underproduction. And think about less stimulation, think about analog. Think about less screen time. Think about things that feel more regulating. Think about, yes, I love that we are connecting over technology right now. And also, what about picking up a book? What about picking up a magazine? Okay. And so your adrenals will always show you how to care for yourself. And this is really pausing enough to get quiet. It's pausing enough to be still so that you can listen, because your body will communicate with you. It's just most of the time we either choose to ignore it, or we're not quiet or still enough long enough to actually listen. So if this conversation is giving you a different lens, again, make sure that you go back and listen to the other episodes that I talked about. So knowing your nervous system part 1, knowing your nervous system part 2, because all of this ties together. Your hormones, your stress, your energy, they are not separate systems. And if you are in that midlife transition and you are, again, that woman that's like, I just do not feel good, and all my labs are normal, etc., it's really honestly time to look at your adrenals. And if you've been blaming your body, I hope this helped you to see it differently, because truly your body is only doing what it thinks it needs to, and that is to keep you alive. And I want to always remind you, you're not behind, you're not broken. It may just be that your body has been adapting for a long time. Many of you have been on this planet for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. That is a long time. And so now you have the opportunity to support it differently. So thank you so much for being here. If you are watching this on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe, hit that bell icon, drop a comment below with what your biggest takeaway is. I always love to hear from you, and I read all the comments. And if you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, please make sure that you subscribe to the show so that you do not miss any episodes. And I look forward to seeing you next time. And as always, have faith and take action.